Good draft morning, friends. Mark Holmes here, of course, with my buddy Cowboy Joe Boo, as well as Joe Bear in the house. And as always, I want to thank you all for watching, commenting, subscribing, and being part of the Joe Boo Sports Report. Without you guys, as well as you ladies, you know that this literally does not work. So let's get open for business here, and let's wake up the football gods here on this draft day. Can you believe it? It's finally here, the NFL draft. Finally, all the speculation and all the frickin' mock drafts are ending. Thank God. I hate mock drafts. I hate mock drafts. I hate the speculation and everything else. You get, excited about this player, that player, and all this, and all the scenarios and everything else. And the reality is, none of it's going to be true. You just don't know. But starting tonight, we'll know that first piece, hopefully that impact player, hopefully that guy that has that impact like Micah Parsons did. Maybe we get lucky in the second round and get a guy that like Diggs or CeeDee Lamb, and that we fill out these holes in this roster because free agency ain't it for the Cowboys. The Cowboys have been one of the best teams at drafting, just flat out. More all-pros over the last 10 years by far than any other team. And we're going to need them to do that exact same thing today. We need them to be lights out. No ifs, ands, or buts about it. We need some great drafting by our guys. So we've heard so many different scenarios. We heard the Cowboys were desperate to trade up into the top 14. We've heard that the Cowboys may look at trading back because there's more value there. We've heard a lot of teams that want to trade picks that are open for business, but we have yet to hear anybody really trading. We heard that Jerry Jones was working the phones. I say that you work the phones, which I actually think that that's a smart thing. I think it's a good thing to say, you know what, let's go ahead and start sowing the seeds and seeing if somebody falls so far, what would it take for me to take your pick? So as you start in real time seeing somebody going, you won't have time between the picks to make moves, to find out between 31 teams who might be willing to trade. You want to have an idea of what it'll take you to get to X point if you have a player that you deemed a world changer. So going through, listening to the experts, seems like most of the experts have us taking an offensive lineman and staying pat. I think personally, unless, I'll be 100% real. It's got to be the lines. We must deal with the lines. The offensive line especially. Tyron Smith, every year we say, he's in great shape, he's coming back. And he comes back, he plays well for some amount of time, but you can't rely on him to be there for the whole season. So you have to have the next guy ready to step in. Then you think about the guard. Connor Williams is gone. We not only need to replace Connor Williams, we need to make it better. Now, as far as Lyle Collins, I'm okay with Terrence Steele. Zach Martin, he's the real deal. If you get a lights-out guard and have Zach Martin and a lights-out guard on both sides, you're okay with Tyler Badish. And you need a guy who's going to be able to truly be able to back up Tyron Smith. And I still hate it because the Cowboys, they don't believe in defensive linemen. It's kind of like something that you have to do, As Philly 500 would say, matrimonial duties. You got to do it to just get by. They don't really look at game changers on the defense. We've done some good things, and we have some potential pieces in Neville Gallimore. I expected a lot last year from him, but unfortunately the hyperextended elbow had him sit out for 11 games. I think he'll be good. I think he's got the motor. I think OC will be able to take another step. But you still need the big guy in the middle that would tie all this stuff together. That would be To me, a Jordan Davis or a big guy with that kind of ability. If the Cowboys could do that, that defense goes from being good to great. So we listen to Mel Kiper Jr. He thinks we get offensive tackle Tyler Smith from Tulsa. Todd McShay thinks we get offensive tackle Trevor Penning via trade. He thinks we trade up to get him from Northern Iowa. Jeremiah Trotter thinks we stay pat and we take Jonan Dotson, wide receiver. I'm not one that says go out and get a wide receiver in the first round. But that's probably what the Cowboys will do. Let's face it, it's sizzle more than substance. And Peter from NFL Network has Tyler Linnebaum, center from Iowa. You guys have heard my philosophy. By the time the Cowboys pick, top 4 tackles will probably be off the board. I don't know that the guards, that more than one guard will be off there. And I would rather take the top prospect in a position than the 4th or 5th. That's just me. And I believe the lines need to be taken care of first. You take care of the offensive line, Zeke will be able to run through those holes. Tony Pollard will be more effective. And Dak will have more time to throw to the receivers, that the receivers may not be as good as what we had, but you give a quarterback like Dak 4 or 5 seconds to throw, he will find an open man. Now let's hear what Jimmy Johnson had to say yesterday on Colin Cowherd. He's got an interesting take, so to speak, on the Cowboys' needs.
Aiden Hutchison, 3-year starter, productive. Trayvon Walker, better traits, higher ceiling, not as productive. Who do you take?
Yeah, Colin, I really can't answer that because I haven't studied the individuals. For those high picks, I always wanted to sit down with them, know them personally. There's a lot of intangibles that go into it. You really want to be able to predict, are they going to improve? Are they going to be good players down the road? That's why intelligence was like my number one criteria.
Yeah.
Looking at players. I wanted intelligence. I wanted a gym rat. I wanted a playmaker. I wanted somebody with speed and quickness, and I wanted somebody with character, because you can't win championships with bums. But I
can't win championships with bums.
Before I made a decision on a high pick.
Now, everybody's saying, Jimmy, that's a bad draft. And Joy keeps saying, if we had 4 good quarterbacks, we wouldn't be talking about what a bad draft it is. I mean, your takeaway on this kind of like it's a bad draft narrative.
It's a bad draft if you don't draft the right guys. If you draft the right guys, it's a great draft.
Right. Did you ever have a draft? I mean, you had multiple drafts. Do you know when you make a draft pick, do you know instantly in camp, I don't know if he's going to work?
I had one. I mean, obviously, you don't hit on every one of them. But I always try to cut my losses before I waited too long. Obviously, I wanted to give the player a chance. I know I had a second rounder down with Miami that I cut, right after training camp because I saw that he wasn't going to play. But I had a 5th rounder that same year, Zach Thomas, that should be going into the Hall of Fame.
Right.
And so you're not going to hit on every one of them, but you try to hit on more than what you miss.
So, it's funny what's happening to the league. Both the Bengals and Rams had very soft linebacking cores. Bengals didn't even have a good O-line, which they have addressed. It used to be you get a quarterback, you protect your quarterback. That was number one. The game's kind of changing. A lot of perimeter players now are making quarterback money. You look at the Dallas Cowboys right now, and I've said Lyle Collins is gone, and Tyron Smith's got about a year or 2 left. Mm-hmm. I think they have to attack that offensive line very quickly. And then I think, Jimmy, they let Amari Cooper go. And I don't know if Michael Gallup's going to be great off that ACL. Maybe they should do Cincinnati and just go get wide receivers. Dallas, what are your guess on what Dallas does?
Well, I think offensive line, that's been a problem for them the last couple of years because Smith has been injured. They lost Collins, like you say. They lost the offensive guard. So they've got to shore up that offensive line. They've got plenty of receivers. Plus, you can get receivers in the later rounds. Mm-hmm. Even like we talk about the Green Bay Packers needing receivers. Devontae Adams was a second-round pick. And so I think the offensive line is the critical area right now. And plus, there's some great offensive linemen that are going to be picked up in the first round.
By the way, this Alabama, I'm going to show you the Evan Neal from Alabama. Here's what worries me. Is that now he started for Saban for 3 years, and so he's good, right? We know that. And it's the SEC. But, boy, Jimmy, he is big, and he doesn't – like if you fool him, he doesn't move his feet very well for the second-tier block. Does that concern you at all?
Well, yeah, it concerns me a little bit, but he moves his feet pretty well when he jumps up on that box for a 350-pounder.
Yeah.
But, yeah, again, I got to look at the intangibles, Colin, because you got to see, is a guy going to get better? Is he going to improve? Obviously, at Alabama, he's getting as fine a coaching as there is anywhere in the country. Some of the smaller schools, I took Eric Williams from Central State of Ohio in the third round. He would have been a Hall of Famer had he not had a car wreck. So you got to look and see if they're going to improve and how much they're going to improve.
There's always the argument I always make the joke that if my wife sent me to the store to buy milk and bread and I came back with a rake and I said, but I got great value on it, boy, I got that rake for half off, she'd say, well, we already have a rake. You didn't get me milk and bread. And so I always say, you can tell me value, and then I think if I need a corner and I don't see one for the next 60 picks except one that I may have to reach a little on, how do you value that? Well, how do you fall on that?
This goes right back to when I first went to Dallas. The saying was take the best player available. And I said, well, what if I don't like the best player?
Yeah, there you go.
I'm going to move around. And so that's how the trade chart came about, because I wanted to trade. We made 51 trades in 5 years. And back then there was no fantasy football. Nobody traded. And that's why I needed the chart to help me to where I could make a decision in a few minutes. And as far as, the bread and milk and whether or not, you really didn't need it. Well, why didn't you go to another store and get what you needed?
Yeah,
there you
that's
go.
What I did. I'd move out of a pick to get a player that I needed, that I liked, that its value was there.
By the way, are you surprised people still use your trade chart?
It's crazy. It's been 30-something years. And, I talked to Brett Veach with Kansas City here last year. He said, I used your chart on with the Brown trade. And I talked to Ozzie Newsome a couple of years ago, and he said, I use your chart on the Peters trade. And, it's amazing. Now, the chart has been, adjusted a little bit for the salary cap and, a little bit for each particular team. But the chart is still used throughout the league. But I needed something like that because we were making so many trades. I came up with the idea to do the chart, and I had a guy in the business office. I said, crunch the numbers and do all the trades for the last 3 or 4 years. You crunch the numbers, and I want a chart with a line graph and a bar graph. And that's what helped me until, Wanstead goes to Chicago and Norv Turner goes to Washington. They took the chart with them. So now everybody's got the chart.
That's funny. Hey, the Jets at number 10. A lot of people think they'll get Drake London at USC. Other people think they'll trade it for Deebo Samuel, but that's very expensive. Give me your kind of thoughts on if you interviewed Drake London and you liked him. Now, I don't think he's a star. I think he could be a great 2. Maybe he's a star. I don't know. But, Jamie, give me your thought process on okay, we interviewed Drake London. We do like him. But, boy, Deebo is in this league, and he is a handful, and I can use him in a lot of ways. Where do you land on that one?
Please, if you can get Deebo Samuel, you take him. There's no guarantee even a 10th round pick is going to be, a great player. You got a good feeling, but Samuel is a great player. Really, Samuel's worth a lot more than the 10th pick. He is a game changer.
Yeah. Okay, you wrote a book called Swagger. It's online now, Untold Stories from Jimmy's Cowboys, Dolphins, and Hurricanes. There, look at that right there. Boy, that guy's serious right there. It's funny. So give me a story. What is the one position in all your years of recruiting and coaching, all through it, what is the one position that scared you when you were like, man, like Belichick has struggled with receivers. And is there ever a position you're like, I don't know. My radar is a little, because I know what you draft well. I watched it. But are there positions, Jimmy, that even you would be like, I'm going to go ask Norv Turner or Wannstedt on this?
Yeah, Colin, I really struggled with the Dolphins a little bit. I was able to get some great players with, Jason Taylor, of course, a Hall of Famer. Zach Thomas is going to be a Hall of Famer. Patrick Surtain and Sam Madison, corners that allowed us to lead the league in defense. But where I struggled was I was trying to get Dan Marino some help. And so it's kind of like your bread and your milk deal. I was, reaching a little bit to get an offensive player to help Dan Marino. And, we drafted Yatil Green. He tears up his knee, so we lost him. So we drafted some players. We drafted Kareem Abdul-Jabbar. He was our running back. He rushed for over 1,000 yards, but he wasn't a difference maker. So when I start reaching a little bit to try to help a particular part of the football team, that's where I got in trouble.
Yeah. Show that book again. It's called Swagger. You don't want to mess with Jimmy Johnson.
Colin, there's some good stories in that book now.
I guarantee you there's some good stories in that book.
Which I know are in the book, and I didn't share because I didn't know if I had a right to, and they are in the book. So
the closer we get to the release, then you can share some of those
there
stories.
You go.
Jimmy, they can pre-order it on Simon & Schuster.
No, it's going to be great. Swag.
All right, so, the thing here that's interesting, and this, I think, is the problem for the Cowboys, has been, and Jimmy Johnson actually touched on that too, because Jimmy Johnson, 51 trades in 5 years. They constantly kept turning over the roster. They weren't afraid to bring people in. And having been the ones that innovated the trade scale, what is the value that you can use and spend draft capital-wise to move up, which is still being used today? And see, this is the difference of the Cowboys over the last 27 years. When you had Tom Landry, who was an innovator, who realized that, hey, we've got a linebacker that sucks. We can make him a defensive tackle and cheat him off the ball in this flex defense, and becomes a Hall of Famer. He went to places where people weren't looking for football players, like track and field. And you end up getting Bob Bullet Hayes. You end up doing things like the shotgun, which got your quarterback back there, could survey the field and give him a little bit more time. The shift. These were things that gave you an advantage over the opposition. Jimmy Johnson coming up with the draft formula, because there wasn't all the mock drafts and all the information out there. There wasn't all the statistics out there. So getting together in the same way that Tom Landry ended up being the first guy to use a computer and got a mathematician from India to just crunch numbers so that way they can be better at picking out the prospects. Jimmy Johnson took it another step by figuring out what is value worth to move up and trade and move back and forth, and to get competent compensation as well as good players. And not all of the players are going to work out, but there's strength in numbers. And herein lies the problem. Once they cut the head off of Jimmy Johnson, who was the brainchild and the leader, he didn't do all of the work. He's had all of the people around him, the Norv Turners, the Dave Wannstedts, the guys that he could trust, where they were his eyes and ears. Great assistant coaches that would take his philosophy, his drive, and get the right type of players to fit the system that they could literally just blow everybody away. We have not had that. You cannot look at the Dallas Cowboys over the last 27 years and say they have innovated anything other than drafting players that have fallen because of whatever reason, be it character issues, be it injuries or whatever. That's the only thing you can look at and say the Cowboys do that more than anybody else. And that's where we have to get back to being an innovative team. I'm sorry, but our offense is still stuck in what we used to do in the 90s. And if you're not getting better, you're getting worse. Hopefully today will be the start of really getting the Dallas Cowboys shit together. We're going to have a fun time today. I'm picking up David Wiley. I got to go out and get a big slab of meat. I got my chicken wings ready. There's a lot of places that you can go to watch the draft. A lot of places. I hope you join us, because this is really a party. and we'll have the Zoom link up for anybody who is a channel member of the Joe Boo Sports Report. You'll be able to be part of the audience. You'll be able to comment, tell us what you think about what's going on. And, of course, we'll have the meltdown cams for the other teams as well. So we'll be checking in. We'll be here all 3 days, and we got work to do. I appreciate you guys, and I will see you guys soon. Mark Holmes here, and as always, I want to thank you all for watching, commenting, subscribing, and being part of the Joe Boo Sports Report.
You did one hell of a job, and the only thing else I got to say